Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TGI Sports Talk's college. Oh, not college football huddle. It's the Are You Serious show. It's Friday morning. Let's get it together, Keith. Welcome, everybody. Watching today on TGI Sports Talk, obviously, on Northeast Streaming Sports, both on Facebook, YouTube, and Roku. We're live this morning. Get that Roku app downloaded on Northeast Streaming Sports. Lots of great content over there. I think 47, 48, 49 shows with new content every week at this point, and growing. Great job there. Welcome to the LTS family. Let me stop this music here. Also some tremendous shows over there. Lots of stuff going on. Alan Perales, who got his start here, is one of our loyal followers in the beginning. Tanner D doing a good job picking up for Dan Harris. DDS, thumbs up. And also some others like Bodkins and Johnny Cruz, Scott Cody, lots of great guys over there. So check out LTS. And a quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media, and specifically, he does some great stuff on RW Media, and specifically the Sports Corner that he does with Smoke and Jim Frazier on WBVP Radio, 1230 AM and 99.3 FM. That show airs at 5:30 on Tuesdays every week. I try to share it when Ralph has, and I haven't seen it this week, I don't think. So I don't know if I shared it or not. I'll check that out. I'll bring the Mad New Yorker in here in a second. We're going to get into some fun topics today, which may not be fun for him, at least one of them. It may not be fun for all of us, I guess. The Bills' dysfunction. What's going on? Did the wrong coach get fired? We'll talk about that. Jimbo Fisher, something happened I did not think would happen. Jimbo Fisher is paid out his $77 million to walk away. I feel like the coaching contracts landscape is going to change greatly. We'll talk about that. I want to talk about the managerial carousel in Major League Baseball. Did the Mets get used by Craig Counsell? And should they be happy with their hire in Mendoza, and maybe a couple other topics as well. We might talk about James Madison, by the way, being refused by the NCAA to waive the 2-year wait, which is a ridiculous rule, by the way, to be participate in any postseason, their own league's postseason. This is a team that would be in contention for a New Year's Day bowl game from that group of 6. A lot. So good morning, Rick Sherlock. Good to have you with us. And with that, I'll bring in the aforementioned Mad New Yorker. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. How you guys doing today?
How you doing, Carlos? What's going on in the city?
Oh, man, it's been the nicest 2 days of November in a few years now. So trying to enjoy the weather before it gets crazy.
It's going to get cold up here this weekend. I don't know about what's today. I don't even know. Today going to be a nice day?
Right now in the lower 60s.
Yeah, going up to 62 here. So, yeah, cool. And then it's going to get cool. So it's Thanksgiving's coming. We got early Thanksgiving tomorrow because the kids and whatnot are all off to their significant others. So we're having an early Thanksgiving celebration tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Which we're looking forward to. Get to see my mom or my dad and stepmom. And
I never thought of it like that. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did it the last couple of years. So lots to talk about. Watching the Bills the other night, and I know you talk about their situations, and I'm more likely probably to agree with you here than I might have been previously. And they fired Ken Dorsey, who worked, I believe he was the quarterback coach under Brian Daboll before Daboll left and was promoted. Leslie Frazier already had been, whether he removed himself or was removed, I don't know. But I'm not sure the right coach got fired. I think McDermott should be starting to get looked at here. This is his. At some point, there's no more cover.
Right.
The defensive coordinator's gone. Your offensive coordinator's gone. Pretty soon, I got the spotlight left on me, and I think it might be time for a total dismantling of his team. And good morning to Robert from Sports Scopes. Great stuff from Robert. Everywhere too, and you can catch the Mad New Yorker with Robert on Friday nights, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm the only team that plays in New York, and I'm not a fan of. for various reasons.
Wait a minute. Oh, the only team that plays in New York. Okay, I got it first.
Yeah.
I thought they would, because you do a good job bashing the other quasi New York teams, right? Okay.
Right. And most of the sentiment comes from the fact that they do not play in New York, but they play near the city. So, but I'm not going to digress. I think the problem with the ownership in Buffalo is that they are okay with McDermott because he has a decent winning percentage. Like, it's hard to let go of a coach that has a winning record. And I think that's one of the things that's keeping them in, keeping them from getting fired from actual management. What he's done as far as producing the coaching staff hasn't been too, I'm going to say and be honest, considering that I can be biased sometimes. But he's done a decent job getting a coaching staff together. The only problem I feel like is that they don't put the plays together well for the teams that they have. And now they also want to transition a running quarterback
Good morning,
to a pocket quarterback. Morning, Bob. How you doing? So there's a lot of things going on there in Buffalo. And then you take in the consideration too that it's Buffalo and it's hard to play in come past November. So, a lot of things kind of just will snowball eventually, and there's no balance, right? That's one of the things I talk about. Teams need balance, and I think Frazier left hoping that he was going to get hired somewhere in the other team in the NFL, and I think a lot of teams missed out on that. He's a good coach. He deserved a chance to be a head coach, and I'm
sure Rick Sherlock will disagree with you at some point in the comments, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all right. It's okay to disagree with people.
To me, they have to start falling back on McDermott because Josh Allen's regressing. He was very close to being one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. I don't think he is right now. You can't turn the ball over. Well, 11 interceptions. 11 4 fumbles. 15 turnovers. Not a good situation.
No.
And people talk about there being no running game, but James Cook's run for 615 yards. He's averaging 5 yards a carry.
But the Bills still rank in the lower end of the NFL, and like
they don't commit to the run
in the 20th percentile. So
they don't commit to the run.
Okay, let's say they commit to the run, but Josh Allen's game is the fact that he needs to be moving out to the sides of the pocket, either left or right. He can't just stay in the middle of the pocket because that's not his game. His game is to move forward and throw the ball.
Still do that on pass plays. You can still run the ball a little more and still run those plays.
Yeah, but like you can't put in his head him being a running quarterback and say, okay, now this year you're going to stay in the pocket because we want to protect you and we want to keep you healthy. Because that's what I always say, like, you can't have your quarterback rushing more yards than your running back, right? And it's okay for your quarterback, if he's a running quarterback, to get yards, right? But he shouldn't get more yards and average more yards per carry than your running back.
He doesn't. He averages 5 yards a carry. So does James Cook. Same thing.
That's not good. How's that good?
Well, first of all, quarterbacks are running on scrambles, and again, they're going to average because they don't run as much. Their average is almost always going to be higher. Even bad, not fleet of foot quarterbacks will have higher average than running backs sometimes. You think 5 yards a carry for James Cook is bad? That's very good in the NFL today.
I'm going to take this to a terrible team, but did Daniel Jones, when he was healthy, did he ever run more yards than Saquon Barkley?
More yards? No.
Yeah, the game.
No.
Exactly. So that's the problem, Keith.
No, that's not the problem. He's 250 or 70 yards behind Cook in total yardage.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is during a game, the issue should be and the attention.
If you're talking about individual games, and yes, Daniel Jones has outrushed Barkley in individual games. Yes,
I know, which is why they're in the situation that they're in now. They're not good. It's not a good balanced team. Listen, you need a good running game, and that's always proof in the pudding. Like, you need a good balance. And
I hear this every year about the Bills' running game, and I give you evidence that their running game isn't as bad as people think. They just don't.
For being in the top of your division, usually almost every year for the last few years, your running game is always ranked and after the 15 to 20 teams in the NFL. that's not good. That's not going to help your team, especially if it's actually exciting and good that they can actually score fast. That's okay, but they're not running the ball.
It's the coaching decisions about the way to use the running game. It's not the running game itself. James Cook is a very effective NFL back. They don't use him right. I mean, again, Alex has got a great question here. If they blow it up, if McDermott's gone, which it could be a possibility, this team may finish under 500. If they blow it up, what do you do with Josh Allen? You're not going to be in a position to draft one of the top quarterbacks.
No, you made that bet and you got to sleep in it. You gave him you extended his contract.
Yeah, you blow it up, Josh Allen's still got to be your quarterback.
Yeah, you're like for sure. And the thing is that there's if they would have had maybe one more explosive wide receiver, because they have 3 decent wide receivers, but if they would have had one more explosive wide receiver, kind of like the tandem that they have in the Bengals that are always hurt.
Yeah.
Like they would probably be in a better position for Allen because he can throw the ball deep, right? But even the running game can get going just to kind of.
But his decision making seems to be regressing. That's my problem here. And this is why Dorsey gets fired, right? Because he's in charge of that specific thing. The quarterback is his guy, and Anthony, good morning, Anthony, and good morning, Alec, if I didn't say good morning.
Morning, guys.
Anthony makes a good point here. I mean, I think Diggs is going to be gone no matter what. But one of the problems they have here is they got Diggs, and none of these other young wide receivers has really stepped up to be that second guy. Right. And you can't win big with just one guy. I mean, you saw when Buffalo did play well in the playoffs, it's when guys like Gabe Davis stepped up and had a huge game. Diggs is one of the better receivers in football, obviously, but he's also one of your better trade chips. And he looked good, by the way, with C.J. Stroud, but I don't know that they're going to get enough back from the Texans here. I think they need to rebuild, and I know you'll agree with this, but everybody needs to do this. Retool that offensive line a little bit because, again, I think they're a better run offensive line than people think, but they don't protect the quarterback as well as they should. And they need to get better weapons on the outside. I'm happy with their running backs. And by the way, when we talk about coaches, bad penalties that cost them this game Monday night, come down to coaching. That's a horrible. You can't have 12 men on the field on a game-winning field goal, and they miss it and they get another chance. That is one of the worst mistakes of coaching. That's preparation, and that's all falls on the coaching staff.
So, do you give credit to the other coach on the opposite side for rushing everybody on the field for a field goal in less than 20 seconds?
He did what he needed to do, absolutely. But you have to be prepared for the same situation, and they were not. Somebody ended up on the field that didn't belong there, and you need to be practicing that type of stuff, and they know what to do in every situation, and somebody didn't. That falls on the coaches.
Yeah, but that kind of reminds me, too, when Dak Prescott had the ball, and he was supposed to go down the field with it and run everybody up to the line, and they just ran out of time.
Yeah, and again, that came down to coaching and your quarterback not being aware of the game situation because he didn't hand the ball to the referee in that case, if you remember. That was one of the reasons they didn't get another playoff if that game you're talking about with the Cowboys. Quarterbacks, everybody's got to be aware in those situations. But that loss to me is directly on the coaching staff. I know Josh Allen turned the ball over a bunch. But
they had the opportunity. They were in the game.
They had a chance to win. They were winning. 4 times. They lost because of having 12 men on the field. The game was won. They missed a field goal, and they gave him another chance. Did I miss something here? Let's see what else I got here from Alec. Josh Allen needs a nice, friendly playbook in the game plan like the great Kyle Shanahan puts together for his quarterbacks. Listen, I don't disagree.
Oh, God.
I don't disagree.
How many Super Bowls has that playbook won? One. And Raheem Morris was the reason why LA won that. Don't even give that credit to Sean McVay because that defense was stout enough and balanced enough to make sure that team was in the game.
Well, we're talking about Kyle Shanahan, so I don't know how the Rams.
McVay runs the same stuff, the same junk.
Same junk. These teams have some of the best. They won a Super Bowl in the last couple of years. Shanahan has the best record in the NFL, maybe, or one of the best records in the NFL in the last 5 years since he's been in San Francisco, without a great quarterback, by the way. And his stuff stinks. I don't get it.
Because it can only take you so deep. It'll take you to 5 games, and after 5 games, it's a crapshoot.
It took them to a Super Bowl that they almost won.
The Super Bowl they won because that defense was stout, and Kroenke paid a lot of money for that defense. In fact, they didn't even score 27 points. They didn't even score 27 points in that Super Bowl.
How many Super Bowls have let's see, who do you like? Who do you like? Who do you like as a play caller? Who do you think they ought to never mind. Play like what offensive coordinator, what head coach do you think they ought to emulate? There's the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I like the West Coast offense. I like that. I like that. I like what it had in there. I like what the Rams did in the early 2000s. But the idea of what the Rams did and what
early 2000s
did is totally different. With this RPOs and what they're doing with the Shanahan system.
Totally different today. The game's not even anything close to what it was in the early 2000s.
But what I'm saying, you're asking about play call. I'm not talking about the players and how they play. And that's another thing. That's another thing, Keith. These teams had at least 3 guys on the offensive line to give these quarterbacks that opportunity in those past teams. Garoppolo didn't have Garoppolo had half of an O-line.
Well, Garoppolo was not a franchise quarterback, as we know. They also won
in San Francisco, and it didn't work out.
They didn't get to the Super Bowl because of Jimmy Garoppolo. He threw the ball 8 times in the NFC Championship game that year, by the way. Just saying.
Most of the time, he was getting hit.
Come on. The game plan was for him not to throw the football because you don't trust him. You trust the running game, and they should, by the way, because they got a great running game out there. And I'm not even sold on Purdy right now because his arm looks like it's still hurt to me.
I know. I don't think they'll make it to. I think they'll be in the playoffs. I don't think they'll make it far.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about his health altogether. Anthony with a good question. Anthony Price with a good question here. Are the Bills and Cincinnati in the same boat? If they don't rebound here, do they just fire sale the team? Well, you can only the quarterbacks aren't going anywhere.
Right. They just committed to Burrow, which I thought was
the question comes down to the coaches and front office guys. That's what it's going to come down to. I do think it's possible Zach Taylor could be in trouble if the Bengals tank out the rest of the year here. I don't know what Burrow's situation is after last night. He went out hurt, so it's going to be 10. I thought the kid played pretty good behind him, but they just weren't good enough there talent-wise to beat a good Ravens team. Bengals could be looking to make a change. The Bills could make a change. There's a lot of teams. You could see a record number of head coaching changes this year because there's a lot of bad football, as we've talked about on this show.
If you're the Bills, do you bring back the defensive coordinator as a head coach?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No,
I had time there, and
I'm pretty sure they go out if they get a new head coach. It's going to be an offensive-minded head coach just because of the quarterback.
But those things never always happen. Those things never always work out.
Well, they don't always work out, or they never work out. Shanahan's had done well.
Shanahan's have not done well. Where are you seeing this, Keith? That coaching tree is ridiculous. They got 4 coaches right now that used to coach together in Washington.
Why do people get wrapped up in coaching trees? Who cares about coaching trees? I care
because they're doing the same thing. They're throwing out the same garbage, thinking that it don't stink.
History of football. The best head coach in the history of football is Bill Belichick, and his coaching tree sucks. That's not a reflection on Bill Belichick.
True. Those coaches are great coordinators. They're terrible coaches.
I meant head coaches. That's where you were going. They are bad head coaches. That's got nothing to do with Bill Belichick. That's not his job. Or any other coach, Kyle Shanahan or anybody. It's not his job to prepare them to be head coaches. It's to go out and win games with them as their coordinators. So again, you can't knock head coaches for that.
And at the end of the day, if Miami can't figure it out and how to win games at the end of the day, that's another guy from using the same. Well, what I liked and what they said at the beginning of the season was they were going to use that kind of playbook, but also they were going to mix it up with the talent that they had on the team, which is actually what you're supposed to do anyways. But, kudos to Miami for trying to progress and not be stuck in the mud.
Yeah, getting through some other comments here. The 2019 offensive line was good. It was better. And I think, again, this offensive line is not that bad against the run. People, I think, are overreacting to that. They don't protect the quarterback as well as they should. But Rick would not bring the defensive coordinator back as a head coach, not even as a defensive coordinator. But here's a good question. Does Detmar take the job? Listen, I already have. This was, and I'm going to get out
in charges before we go anywhere else.
I'm going to get out in front of myself. My don't be surprised if for college football is this. Jim Harbaugh's accepted, as we know, his suspension now for 3 games. Jim Harbaugh will be on the sidelines for the Big Ten championship game and any playoff game. And Jim Harbaugh will be the head coach of the Raiders next year.
The Raiders?
Surprised if that's right.
The Raiders. I'm thinking maybe the Chargers.
Well, I think you could see a different head coach there who might have the letters GOAT next to his name. Possibly. A lot of stuff going to go on. And head coach
is going to come back as a coach?
Belichick.
Oh, Belichick at Los Angeles?
The Chargers, yeah.
No.
If he is let go with the Patriots, if he coaches next year, it's going to be either in Dallas or in LA. He's not going to rebuild any team in Chicago.
No. Well, they have rumblings of him maybe going to Washington.
He's not going to go there. They need a rebuild. And he's 72 years old next year when the season starts. He's not looking at a rebuild.
He's a young team. They're not rebuilding at Washington. It's not a total rebuild. They have a quarterback.
You just traded your 2 best defensive linemen.
They were the 2 best rated defensive linemen, not the 2 best players.
They're 2 best defensive linemen. So listen, they're going to be in the middle of a rebuild. They're going to have a new head coach.
I think they're going to be okay. I think they're in a better. The Commanders are in a better situation than the Jets and the Giants are right now.
Again, when it comes out to coaching staffs, Anthony brings up Washington's past coaching staff turn out to be good head coaches. Listen, a lot of coordinators do, but that to me, it's not a reflection on the head coach whether they're good.
Anthony, who on that coaching staff turned out to be good? Gruden? No.
Well, he was a head coach.
McDaniels in the second year. McVay's the only one that won the Super Bowl, and he won it because Kroenke was winning like crazy.
He's talking about McVay and Shanahan, I'm sure. They're not good head coaches. Look at the records.
So what about the records? They only have 1 Super Bowl between all 4 of them.
Compare their records to Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weiss and Josh McDaniel and however many other Patriot coaches you want to talk about. Again,
see the same thing with the Cowboys coaching staff in the tree that they had.
Whether they're good or bad, it's not the head coach's issue. They're not good because of the head coach, and they're not bad because of who their head coach is. I never get that comparison. Coaching tree. It's nonsense. I love the Mad New Yorker lover for Kyle.
I don't dislike the man. I just dislike his playbook.
You dislike everything ever named Shanahan or related to Shanahan. You know that.
No, I was a big. I followed the Broncos, and I was rooting for them in the AFC when they had Terrell Davis and they had Elway and they had Sharp. I liked how they played. I liked because it was hard nosed. They were running the ball. And again, Elway at that time he had digressed a little bit throwing the ball, but he'll still threw the ball the Sharp down the field and to McCaffrey and all those guys. He threw the ball so it's not. Here's
what I think. I think you were a big RG3 fan, and when Mike Shanahan ruined his career in the playoffs, you just started to hate everything to do with the Shanahans. That's what I think.
No, what happens is like you're watching football, you like what's going on in the field, and you want your team to have balance. And when those guys go out the field, your team can't do the same thing at the same level, which is okay because it's injuries. But you should at least. You can't be from 100. You should go to 70, not go 100 to 40. And that's what these playbooks do. Once your injuries start hitting your team, the aggression shouldn't be that much. It shouldn't be like 50% off of like what you were doing before. You shouldn't digress that much, and you shouldn't digress that quickly if you're coached the way you're supposed to be coached and you're playing what you're supposed to be playing.
As I mentioned, Rick, I think now this is his second negative Frazier quote. I told you we get some. He's sucked as a head coach, and his defense cost them dearly in their early playoff run. I don't disagree. I mean, you know what? All you got to know about Leslie Frazier's defense is go back and watch the last 50 seconds, whatever it was, in the Kansas City game when they had that game in hand and could not keep the Chiefs from scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean,
50 seconds with no touchdowns. The other shoe fall, more information came out. Well, he's talking about Harbaugh. Whatever.
I mean, they all do the same stuff. It's ridiculous.
I think Jim might be the next head coach for the Bears. It's possible. I do believe.
Bears, I stay away from that.
We won't stay on Harbaugh too long, but Jim Harbaugh will be in the NFL next year. Bears is a good shout. Anthony says Jim loves to work with mobile quarterbacks.
The problem with that is that you go back to where you hang your hat out as a decent quarterback and you tried and you made the playoffs a few times, but do you want to go down there and then you just suck it up and suck wind and then you're a terrible coach, and that I feel like it'll put a little tarnish on your shine there, and I don't think he'll do that. We'll
see. We'll be talking a lot about Jim Harbaugh during the winter, I'm sure. So let's move on to our next topic. Jimbo Fisher last weekend, fired. Anthony Price, I believe, broke the news here on the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. Great job, Anthony. I doubted it, and I apologize again for doubting your.
Wow, you doubted that Jimbo would get fired?
No, I didn't think they'd eat I never thought they'd eat the $77 million. They did it after a big victory last Saturday at Memphis, Mississippi State. And interestingly enough, both coaches got fired after that game. I didn't think they'd eat the money, and then I couldn't find it quickly, but Anthony had it on Bleacher Report. Great job by Anthony. Anyway, so they do. It's a record. The highest buyout ever before this, I believe, was Gus Malzone at Auburn, which was $25 million. I think this, because you still got some coaches out there. Lincoln Riley.
Wow, the first guy you mentioned.
Hold on, I want to talk about guys with big buyouts. Big buyouts. That's what I'm concentrating on here. Because here's my premise, and this is why I want to bring this up. I believe the landscape for coaching contracts is about to change. You're not going to get guaranteed 10-year contracts for 80, 90, $100 million where you can't get rid of that guy without buying him out for $77 million. You're going to see more incentive-laden contracts. They can sign him for 10 years and pay him as much a year as they want. Guys should get paid what they're worth, and they're worth whatever somebody thinks they're worth. You know how I feel about that.
Right.
But if you don't perform, I should have the right to fire you, and I don't owe you any money. I've worked that way my entire life, and I'm fine with that. If I don't perform, I don't have a job. Pretty simple. And I think that the landscape is about to change, and you're not going to see these guaranteed contracts because there's still a bunch of guys out there well over 40 million. I'm trying to find this thing I pulled up.
Did Chip Kelly get fired yet?
Not yet, but after last week's loss in Arizona State, I would not doubt he will be on a list soon.
That's what they were talking about as well. I thought that happened.
I had this article. Now I seem to have lost it. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of guys. Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly at LSU. James Franklin is a Jimbo-ish example. He's got a $70+ million buyout still, and I can't believe they're happy with him at Penn State because he can't beat anybody good in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten's only going to get better next year when it's not just Ohio State and Michigan who are the big boys. You've got Washington and Oregon and USC. Say what you want about them coming into the league, and things are going to get tougher. And winning 10 games and getting to a New Year's Day bowl game. And I don't know how long Penn State's going to be happy with that if they don't win. But I don't see them buying out a $70 million contract, though the oil money and the boosters isn't there like it is for Jimbo.
Well, the money's there because the TV contracts are there right now. So which is one reason why they're all doing the super leagues, super divisions.
Yeah, Alec, my boss could sack me for $77 million. I'll coach one game, get fired. I don't care. But that's why you're going to see this.
Like you know what this sounds like? Like when you had like 2008 and everything was starting to fall apart financially, and all these huge CEOs were getting huge contracts, even though they stunk at their job.
You know, in all sports, in all of sports, I don't care what sport we're talking about. I have never said guys are not worth whatever somebody pays them. Because if that guy thinks he's worth that, fine. But I also ought to have the right, if I'm paying that guy and he doesn't do his job, to cut his pay or get rid of him and not be holding to him for millions, tens of millions of dollars, whether it's a player or a coach. It'll never happen with players because the player unions are not going to allow incentive-laden contracts and such because of injuries and whatnot. But when it comes to coaches, there is no unions to protect them. And I think these presidents of these universities are going to start smartening up and saying, look, I'll give you $10 million to coach my team, and I'll give you a 5-year contract. But if you get fired, I'm not paying you a nickel.
That's not how that works. But
it is how it works. It's how it should work.
It's how it should work. But, I mean, look at Self just made a huge contract in basketball.
Exactly. But I'm telling you that I can feel a change in that whole dynamic getting ready to switch, because you know how much money there's I read an article the other day. There is like $400 million being paid out now to coaches in the NCAA who do not have a job right now. $400 million.
Do you think that's something that NCAA needs to mandate on when they do the contract?
I don't want to see that. I think these college presidents ought to be smart enough, and athletic directors ought to be smart enough. Look at what's going on. Look at the Mel Tucker thing. Michigan State gets luckier than hell that he put himself in a situation to get fired for cause, and I don't have to pay him. Right. Unless, there's going to be lawsuits and whatnot, but they're not going to pay him anywhere close to the $90 million he had coming. Not even close.
Nothing. No. He might get 20.
He might get something, but to me, I don't have to give him anything because that guy's stupid enough to put himself in that situation. I wouldn't pay him a nickel.
But I think that's what a lot of these universities are banking on, is that the human error, right?
No, it isn't up. They don't get the $77 million up front. I saw the breakdown. He'll get paid, I think, over the next 8 years, whatever. So yeah, he's still not hurting. I mean, he's still going to get $15 million a year or $16 million a year over X amount of years until he's paid off. So no, you don't get to $77 million, and that's better for him anyway. By the way, for tax purposes, probably not to get the whole thing up front. So, but they do have to pay him. This is like
depends on what people live.
They did the same thing with, I'm trying to think of the coach's name from LSU now. I can't think of his name. Ed Orgeron. He was happy to go. He was happy to go away with his money. They said, Coach, we just don't want you here. We're going to pay all your money and go away. It's tough. Good morning, Linda. Good to have you with us. If it wasn't for the Knicks, we'd be talking about losing only.
That's coming soon.
Where the New York teams, all the New York teams, I guess. So, so you don't agree? You think that these big contracts are going to continue the way that they have?
Yeah, I believe if the NCAA don't mandate anything, then to the presidents, then the presidents are gonna just go freely nilly, and that's one of their selling points for the contracts to get coaches in, anyways.
This is such a and again,
I know it's not. There's nothing righteous about it at all, and there's nothing that's fair to. Because think about this. That's the coach at Slippery Rock University ain't gonna get $77 million if he gets fired.
No, he's not going to probably get anything, right? He doesn't have a guaranteed contract even, Again, that's fine.
I think if anything, ethically, and if we talk about ethics and,
NCAA and ethics, probably.
Yeah, I know, right? It should be, if they're going to do that, then it should be available to all the coaches at every university that's Division I, right? Well, and then there should be a certain amount for Division II and III, whatever.
You want to limit what they can get paid?
I mean, that's one of the things that's one of the hooks to get these coaches into these Power 5 teams.
Well, that's the American way, by the way. You build yourself up and you make more money as you move up the ladder.
You're saying the smaller universities have no opportunity of getting these great coaches.
No, why should they? Why should they?
I mean,
they can't afford them. And the idea is you start at a small university making a little bit of money and you get better and you move up until you get to the big time and you get yourself a $77 million buyout.
I know your Miami coach might get buyed out too.
Yeah, not this year. Next year, if they don't respond, though, he may be for sure. So he's another one. He's probably got a pretty good buyout too. He's probably on the list in the 40s or 50s. It would cost to buy him out right now. So listen, I'm just a guy, and because I'm not a union guy. Not that the coaches have a union here. I've never had a problem. I've been on a year-to-year contract my entire life in my career, and it's based on whether I perform that year, and I'm okay with that. Because I go out and I work as hard as I can and I do my job. And if I didn't do my job, I'm day to day. I can get a phone call right after this show and say, you know what? We decided to go in a different direction.
But the beauty of sports is you don't get paid on what you do. You get paid on what you've done in a whole series of your career, right?
Which is fine. You can give somebody that type of contract. But again, if you don't perform that year, then goodbye. Goodbye.
It should be that way, but that's.
Oh, by the way, I didn't mention.
If that was that way, if you take it back full circle, then McDermott would have been fired 2 years ago.
I didn't mention Kirby Smart on that list, by the way. He's at the top of that buyout list right now, but he's not obviously. He's in a category.
The worst part for these universities hooking these coaches is that as soon as that coach is fired or moves on, the players are going to win them or they're going somewhere else.
Well, that's again, that is an issue. Now, if Jimbo Fisher were to take another job somewhere, and I do think Jimbo Fisher will take a job somewhere at some point. It's not going to be at the level he was at. He could potentially, if it's right away, he would go get a bunch of kids.
Yeah, but these kids right now, as soon as he said that he was leaving, there's going to be a big old fire sale going on because NIL allows them to pick all these kids up through the December 5th.
A combination of the transfer portal and the NIL does allow for a lot of movement, as we know.
So you're going to see a lot of these teams like UT, University of Tennessee, a lot of Kentucky, some of these SEC teams pick out some of these kids that are.
Wait, Kentucky, Mark Stoops, who I like a lot. He's on the list. He's got like a $51 million buyout right now.
Ugh.
Good coach, but my God, so he walks away. I got to pay him $50 million. And again, it depends on how many years and how much money's left. So it's buyout doesn't necessarily mean that he's better than Dabo Sweeney because Sweeney's got a $40-some million buyout.
Right.
What's left on his contract. But I think that needs to change. I mean, the money's gotten crazy, and the coaches keep jumping for these contracts, which leads no loyalty to the universities, no loyalty to the kids you leave behind, unless you're bringing them with you, which is, I've had to accept the transfer portal, and I've had to accept the kids moving every year because the coaches do it. If the coaches are going to be allowed to do it, well.
Yeah, but that's all it's all reciprocal, and that's going to end soon because once these conferences become power conferences, then some coaches are going to be like, well, we should just stay still because we're not going to get a better deal anywhere else.
Well,
So,
by the way, this is the biggest, and we haven't had a lot of in-season firings in college football. This weekend we had 3, Mississippi State, as I mentioned, and A&M in the same game they played last week, and then Boise State. The biggest opening right now, obviously, is Texas A&M. Stop bringing up Dan Lanning, guys. He's not leaving Oregon to go to Texas A&M. That's just not happening. But I really think there's some validity to the rumor I heard most recently that Dan Campbell, who is a Texas A&M alum and loves the school, they love him. I think there's a very good chance that he leaves the NFL and goes back to his alma mater. There's more money in coaching in college football, as we just talked about, than there is in the NFL.
So
I think it'd be interesting. Don't discount Dan Campbell taking what would have been in decades previous to this, a step backwards into the college game. So might be interesting to keep an eye on.
I mean, the way he coaches and he has his structure would work better with younger guys than NFL anyways.
I think he'd be a great college coach. I really do. And listen, Texas A&M for all their problems winning games, much less getting to, SEC championships games, they recruit very, very well. They've got great facilities, and it's a really good place for somebody to land.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be the same as him being at Detroit. Have a decent season, but nowhere near a championship.
It would take a lot of cash, Alec. But as we just talked about, unless I'm right about things changing in the contract landscape, then there's plenty of money to go to Dan Lanning to make that move. Maybe it depends. I don't know if it depends on how far he takes
the Lions. The Lions will be like what? Maybe they'll have the home position, but they don't have a team deep enough to take to Super Bowl.
They could win a playoff game here, but I do not think this is a Super Bowl team. And if he wants to see it through to try to get them to a Super Bowl team, maybe it depends on how he sees their future. But look, he's going to get one shot at this. And if you're going to get a 10-year contract for $80 million guaranteed, you're probably going to jump.
Plus, yeah, and as long as he does well, he can always jump back to the NFL also.
Yeah, exactly. If you do well there. So let's move on to our next topic because we didn't get to this last week, and I really did want to get your opinion on the whole
Mendoza.
Mendoza Council. Well, the Mets. Let's start with where they started. They were heavily courting Craig Counsell to be their next manager. That's who they wanted. It's who they targeted. The reports out of almost every news media the day before he actually didn't take the job was he was ready to sign a contract. And he goes to the Cubs and becomes the highest paid manager ever at $80 million for 5 years, right?
I was surprised that he moved on from Milwaukee and he didn't take the Twins job.
Sorry, $40 million for 5 years. I said that wrong.
And then he ended up with Chicago at the end of the day. That to me seems more like something Counsell would do. Him coming to New York was just a crapshoot. I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he's not here.
So did he use them? My question is, did he use the Mets?
No. I mean,
you don't think he used the Mets to drive up his price?
No, I don't. I think even if he didn't use the Mets, his bargain, he wouldn't have been a bargain to fetch.
If nobody else was interested in Craig Counsell and he left the Brewers and only the Cubs were interested, you think he would have got $40 million over 5 years? And by far,
the Cubs pay ridiculous amount of money for different things, for different players.
For major league managers, he broke the ceiling here. This is one of his goals that's also
the price to pay as the price changes and inflation happens. I mean, he was going to get
there's
very
no
matter where he was going to go.
$4 million managing major league baseball teams. He broke the record by far here. And listen, he's a really good manager. I don't remember the World Series that he won. I must have missed him.
Yeah,
he's a really good manager with a team with limited resources.
He won as a player a World Series.
He did. He won 2, actually. I think with the Marlins and maybe the
Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks. Well, he was on that team and that beat the Yankees, right? I think. So, but again, so now there's another piece of this, and we'll get to the Mets and Mendoza in a second. The team that he goes to work for already has a manager. Now,
but
there used to be a code, among managers. You did not go negotiate for a job that was already filled.
This isn't old school classic baseball. This is new school. Money begets more money, and at the end, nobody who pays all the money wins anyways. So, I'm glad the Cubs got Counsell. I'm glad he stayed in that area of the country. He might make the Cubs a little bit better.
Are you glad he's not the Met manager?
Yes, I am very happy.
Why are you happy he did not come here?
The type of personality he is wouldn't have meshed at all with what is going on in the culture in New York. And he knows that. So I'm glad that he was able to just make sense of the situation. So,
A's are on the move, Alex. So anyway, a lot of musical chairs have happened. There's only one job left open. I believe that's the Padres, and I think they've narrowed it down to Schlitt and Flaherty out there, I believe. The Mets come up with Carlos Mendoza, right? Former Yankee bench coach. Maybe the Yankees have been better off with him as their manager than Aaron Boone, but that's another conversation. Are you happy? First of all, are you surprised that the Mets fired an experienced manager, were flirting with a experienced manager, and then go to somebody with no major league manager experience?
There isn't no wrong or right answer for the Mets in the situation that they're in right now. But the best situation for them to be in is to get somebody who knows about New York and who's been in New York and who's, at least been on part of a championship team and is experienced as far as being in New York baseball.
Interesting. You just fired a guy who fits all those qualifications.
Yeah, well, that guy didn't want to be here. The guy wanted to be here and be more. But the thing with Buck is it's always
true. They didn't want Buck.
Buck is one of. I like to explain Buck to people this way. There's old school baseball, there's baseball, and there's new baseball, and then there's Buck. He's all in his own little world. He's always wanted to be a GM/manager. He's always wanted to control. He did in
some cases, and he gave that up. He hasn't had it in his last couple of years.
He's very narcissistic, but to that he is a very good coach. Great coach? No. Good coach? Yes. And I think he proved that. I think he proved that he was able to be flexible by stepping back and being just a manager for the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't work out in his favor with what was going on as far as the players coming in and out and him giving up. I don't think
100 games the year before last, right?
Yeah. I don't think what happened to the Mets was his fault more than it was the fact that they were trying to shoot too high, too fast, and getting guys that were already over the hill. And I said this, and I was against it, and they just kept doing it. And so be it. So
he won 100 games 2 years ago. This year was not his fault, but we should have fired
him. He resigned at the end of the day.
He was fired. Stop. Don't even go that way.
I say this.
He didn't even know what he was going to say in his final press conference because Billy Upler was sitting in the back row waiting for the word from David Stern to let Buck resign. They were going to fire him, and they let him fall on his sword and walk away. And that's how it went down. Billy Upler.
Those guys knew. Both of the guys know that the way Showalter is that he's one of those guys that
your own guy. Okay, that's great. But that.
I don't think, to be honest with you, if they would approach him and said, "Would you come back for a second year?" I don't think he would have said no.
No, he would have been back. He didn't resign. He resigned because he was going to get fired.
I don't think that. They
let him resign. That's simple.
I think it was up in the air, and I don't think the fact that it was up in the air gave Showalter.
David wanted Craig Counsell. He fired Buck.
This is the same thing. Look, it's the same thing. It's like the whole thing that's going on in Washington with their coach and the Commanders. They're not going to fire him. They're going to expect for him to resign because there's a level of respect, and the guy he's no matter where he's been.
But that doesn't mean he wasn't fired. Just because you let a guy resign, you're going to get rid of, does not mean he wasn't fired.
The fact that Stearns is player is in charge of what's going on right now, which I don't feel like it was a good move for him to be here, but like already alluded to the fact that Showalter was like saying, I don't know if I want to be here. Then they didn't ask him if he wanted to be there, and they said that they were going to look for a new manager. Then he said, I think if they would have asked him from the get, he would have said okay, and he would still be the manager. That's my opinion. But since they hired somebody new,
I think you're wrong.
Since they hired somebody new, and they saw, and I'm sorry.
You said if they hadn't hired David Stearns.
When they hired Stearns, Buck Showalter knew that he wasn't going to be a GM.
No, he knew he wasn't going to be the manager.
He knew he wasn't going to be a GM because that's what he wants. Showalter wants total control.
He doesn't. I don't think Buck wants that at all anymore. He just wants to manage and win.
I don't think that's true at all because
He was in play in California. He wasn't going to be the GM there.
Listen, man, I don't think he was okay with what went on in the last 2 seasons with the pitching carousel that was going on. Carousel that was going on. So I think, again, had he had control of that situation, we would have probably had only one player. It probably would have only just been Scherzer and not what happened this past season. So.
I find it awesome and ironic that I have turned this conversation into you backing Buck Showalter. You were just pretty much giving a ringing endorsement that Buck should have been making the player moves as well as managing.
No, I'm not endorsing it. What I'm saying is that he would have only done that one move. I'm not saying that was the greatest move and that was a positive move. What I'm saying, and only then would we have had known if he would have been able to be a GM and manager. But he wasn't going to get. Stearns is not going to give him that. That's why he resigned. Stearns wasn't going to give him that position. Even if he gave him the position, it wouldn't have been a good position for him to be in because we already know what Buck does.
I'm going to find this way to edit the tape so it's going to sound like you're giving a ringing endorsement.
That's not what the argument's about. That's not.
No, but I managed to get you to admit he's a good manager and the best one for the Mets.
No, he did okay. I told you from the get. I dislike Buck being here. I told you from the get, and I said it probably wouldn't last long, and I was pretty much on that. So. Well, Mendoza will probably last 3 seasons, 1 too many probably, and then they're going to use him as a scapegoat.
Well, that would mean you don't expect him to be very successful.
No, he'll be all right. He'll get 70, 80 games.
That's not successful.
You want out of the like if he got 100 and he pulled an Atlanta Braves and Dodgers, he's going to get slaughtered here in New York anyways.
So you think the Mets are punting this next season? I'm guessing, right? If you think they're going to win 70 or 80 games, you're not there. You think they're not going to be active this winter trying to improve this team, and they're playing for 2025.
I don't know exactly what they're going to do for the winter meetings, and you usually have a plan. If Peter Alonso's on that plan, but he's going to ask for more than $20 million, this is going to be a whole mess.
I think they know what they're going to do right now with Pete Alonso, and we'll find out here in a few weeks.
I mean, would you sign him?
I think he's going to get traded.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. But who's going to take him? That's the problem.
The problem is he's turned into, a modern day Dave Kingman, and he's the epitome of what baseball is about today, right? Strikeouts and home runs, and no low batting averages, and if you want that, if that's the kind of guy you want, it doesn't make a horrible ball player. He still contributes. He's,
right.
A good teammate and all that. But he's not a guy that I'm paying top dollar because he's going to hit 228 and hit 40 home runs and strike out 170 times a year. So no, yeah. I'm not paying him that money.
I would pay him maybe 15 to 17, but I couldn't go over 20, to be honest with you. Not yet.
Yeah, and he's probably asking for a whole lot more than that.
Well, he's going to ask 25 plus?
I would think so.
Yeah, he got a new agent for that.
I would think so. I'd be shocked. I think Pete Alonso will be on the move this winter. Maybe the Giants. Giants are a good landing spot for him.
The problem with him being trade bait is that I don't know if many teams will take. And then return, and even if they take, what are the Mets getting in return?
Yeah, it's funny, and I like Pete Alonso, but to me, he's everything that's wrong with baseball today. It's there's 3 true outcomes: I walk, home run, or strike out, and I hate it. It's boring baseball, boring.
Then like 3/4 of the Mets team was like that, and he was on the Mets. He's been on the Mets.
Yankees are that way
too. All those guys.
Yankees are that way too. It's one thing to be. I say this all the time. It's one thing to be bad. It's another thing to be bad and boring. And both these teams are boring to watch, and that's the worst sin you can have. It's worse than losing.
So that's why I don't. With Mendoza in, fine. Is he going to get Willie Randolph on his coaching staff?
That would be interesting, by the way.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if Willie would. I don't know if Willie's going to come back.
I don't know if he wants to come back to this circus, man.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, he was not treated very well on the way out the door either. By the way,
yeah, I think with the new management,
it is new management, so I guess that maybe that doesn't come into play. But
what I would like the Mets to do is something that they should have done 3 seasons ago.
By the way, we're talking about managers, so I'll get to your point. Before I forget this. Willie Randolph, I do not know how Willie has not gotten another chance. He had an excellent run with the Mets. They had a couple collapses that really hurt him and the team, obviously. But he had a really good run with the Mets, and I do not understand how Willie never got another shot. Ron Washington, at 71 years old, just got another shot. God bless him. He's a good baseball man. I'm happy he got another chance. Did very well with the Rangers. How did Willie Randolph never get another shot?
Yeah, that ownership, bro.
Well, no. I don't mean with the Mets. I mean another job somewhere else. Did they badmouth him around the league? I don't understand how Willie.
You know what kind of bothers me is that he had
the Yankees. By the way, the Yankees had several chances where they were looking for managers and could have hired Willie.
Yeah, and then Joe Torre, somebody he's worked with, was a coach for him.
Yeah.
Why is he not even in the upper echelons of the MLB executive board? If you know who Willie Randolph is, and you know what he means, and you know what it means to have somebody of color, I know
what he means to the Yankees.
I mean, I don't understand all that either. Like, I don't know. There's a few guys like that too. Like maybe the stuff that happened to Wally Backman, but he's also
Well, Wally's got some other issues.
Yeah, he's got issues. I mean, but Eduardo Alfonso. He took the minor league teams to a championship.
He may get a shot at some point. He might have been a guy who would have got a shot this year.
I think Fonzie would have been okay.
That's a great example, and I hadn't thought about it in this last go round. But he was another guy, and he was a lifelong man. Did he? Oh no, he might have got traded and played elsewhere.
No, he played on a few teams, but he played some of his best baseball with the Mets.
He played his best baseball with the Mets, and on some pretty good teams too. Teams that made the playoffs, and
it was the best defensive team when he played on it. Like,
he was a really solid player, and I forgot he was managing the Mets. Affiliate. I think he's in Brooklyn. I'm not sure where he is.
Brooklyn Cyclones to a championship.
Yeah. Good point. Great catch there, Carlos. I love that. All right, before we wrap it up, give me a pick. Give me your best bet in the NFL.
Who was that team that I said? I think that the Dallas Cowboys, even though they'll beat the Panthers, I think they need to be careful and just play hard and not think about the Commanders.
My best bet this week is the Lions.
Who are they playing?
The Lions are playing the Bears.
That's the one I want. I want an upset on that right there.
Oh, you like the Bears as your upset?
Yeah.
All right. My upset's going to be the Cardinals upsetting the Texans.
And can we point out that I called the Texans beating the Cincinnati Bengals?
I know you said that, but I don't remember you saying it. So you said it. I don't remember you saying it. Did you say it here last week?
And listen,
was that your pick last week?
Yeah, that was my upset. My upset. And
check the videotape.
Yeah, and also the Burrow contract is the worst thing the Cincinnati Bengals could have done.
That's if he continues his injury streak, then it might be. Give me a college football best bet.
Alabama. They won't win.
Alabama. Jesus, they're playing Chattanooga. If they don't, they'll win by freaking 100. You can't even get a line on that game.
So like I call Washington winning. Remember?
I hate this game. It's okay playing Chattanooga in September, but playing Chattanooga now, and FSU has got the same thing. They're playing Northern Alabama this week. So basically bye weeks. Listen, my best bet, I already gave you my kind of don't be surprised about that was the Harbaugh thing. My best bet this week is also going to be my upset. Same game. Louisville somehow is a 1-point underdog at Miami. I'm going to take Louisville to win this game, and they'll be my
1-point underdog.
They are. They're
against Miami. They're on the verge to do the championship game with whoever wins in the.
Yes, that may change by tomorrow, but right now they're a 1-point dog, and I am going to take as my best bet and my upset the Louisville Cardinals over the Miami.
That's a good one right there.
That'll be a bet for me tomorrow if that line doesn't change a lot. So even if it changes a point,
it's crazy that they're underdogs on that game. What, are they playing in Miami?
The game's in Miami, but remember,
that means Louisville will play better.
Miami doesn't have a huge home field advantage.
No. It's the fact that Louisville is getting colder now, and it's the weather's all crazy. Now they're going to a warmer place.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Cardinals this weekend. Carlos, thank you. Great job. Thank you to all you guys.
Have a good weekend.
Alec, Dave Guyette. I didn't get a chance, I don't think, to say good morning to you. Bob and Jeanette, my dad and stepmom. Thanks. Everybody I missed, I apologize. We'll see you next Friday.
Happy Thanksgiving, Keith. Enjoy your family meal, bro.